Before humans were able to build giant, fearsome ships capable of surviving the world's angriest seas, they relied mainly on wooden sailing boats to explore and conquer new lands. These early ships carried kingdoms and adventurers to the farthest corners of the globe, yet many of these journeys were dangerous. Storms, strong currents, and violent waves often overwhelmed even the strongest crews. Many expeditions were forced to turn back halfway, and some never returned at all. But among all these early seafarers, there was one group who truly mastered the seas: the Vikings. Hailing from a small, cold corner of northern Europe, they rose from modest tribal beginnings to a terrifying, conquering force that reached as far as Africa and beyond. The secret behind their dominance lay in a genius ship design. What made Viking longships unbreakable, swift, and unmatched by other kingdoms? And why could no other empire replicate their success, no matter how hard they tried? This is the story of how a brilliant maritime design changed human history forever. Before the Viking longship became a fearsome instrument of war, it began humbly. The first ships were simple dugout canoes, also known as logboats. For hundreds of years, Scandinavians relied on these hollowed-out logs to navigate the rivers, lakes, and coasts of their rugged homeland. Dense forests and towering mountains made overland travel slow and dangerous, but waterways offered a practical alternative. These early logboats were powered by paddles, and while simple, they were essential for transport, fishing, and trade. Innovation, however, did not take long to arrive. Over time, the Scandinavians began enhancing their logboats by adding wooden planks, joined using the clinker or lapstrake technique. In this method, planks overlapped each other along the edges and were fastened tightly together. The result was a more flexible and durable structure. This design allowed the boats to ride waves more effectively and survive the sometimes harsh waters of northern Europe. The Vikings also learned a great deal from contact with the Roman Empire. As Rome expanded northward, some Scandinavians served in Roman armies and observed Mediterranean shipbuilding techniques. They witnessed massive Roman warships designed to dominate the seas, as well as cargo vessels that carried precious goods across rivers and coastlines. These ships were built with internal timber skeletons, reinforced with metal nails and other fasteners, providing strength and stability. The Vikings brought these insights home and began adapting them to their own needs, merging Roman techniques with their traditional logboat designs. At first, the improvements were small but significant. Loose paddles were replaced with anchored oars, allowing crews to row more efficiently. Iron nails began replacing sewn wooden joints, and the boats gradually transitioned from simple logs to keel-planked vessels, making them taller, stronger, and more seaworthy. Yet even as these innovations transformed the ships, a core principle remained. The Viking longship's strength came from its outer shell rather than its internal frame. These vessels were thin-walled, light, and remarkably strong, allowing them to glide across the water faster than their Roman counterparts. In an era of fierce competition and frequent raiding, this speed and agility became a decisive advantage. For a time, these ships relied solely on oars. Sails were expensive and complex, so early longships managed with manpower alone. But following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, Europe experienced economic decline, leveling the playing field. Trade routes through Scandinavia grew increasingly profitable, and as wealth and competition increased, the need for faster, more versatile vessels became urgent. By the 8th century, adding sails to their already swift longships made them nearly unstoppable. The Viking longship had truly come into its own. Fully developed Viking longships could carry up to 100 warriors and their provisions, allowing the Vikings to land on open beaches, navigate inland rivers, and even transport their ships overland when necessary. This unmatched mobility enabled raids across Britain, Ireland, and France, reaching inland settlements that would have been impossible for other armies to attack. Imagine a fleet of these sleek vessels rounding a headland, sails catching the wind, sliding gracefully onto a beach, and striking suddenly at unsuspecting villages. Their combination of speed, shallow draft, and shallow rafts allowed the Vikings to surprise enemies and retreat before organized resistance could form. The longship's design included more than speed. A large sail, supported by a massive timber mast known as a keelson, distributed the weight of the mast and handled the strain of strong winds. When the wind died, crews could row efficiently using oars inserted into pre-drilled holes in the upper stakes. The deck was partially flexible, allowing for the storage of weapons, shields, and other equipment. Decorations, paint, and carvings adorned the ships, designed both to intimidate enemies and to signify status and allegiance. These ships were not only tools of war, but also symbols of power. The Vikings were far from unorganized barbarians. Their battles at sea required complex coordination. Fleets included longships and smaller supply vessels, all operating under visual signals, flags, and painted shields. A fleet could range from 10 to 30 ships, each with 20 to 100 warriors. A jarl or chieftain would lead, while captains and skalds motivated crews and directed maneuvers. Formations like the line for direct assault or the crescent for encirclement showcased the longship, versatility, and highlighted the disciplined approach of Viking seafaring. These tactical innovations, combined with rigorous training in navigation and combat, transformed Viking longships into a force feared across Europe. The speed, maneuverability, and structural resilience of these vessels allowed Vikings to strike unexpectedly, attack remote settlements, and escape before retaliation. Historical accounts tell of entire monasteries being raided within hours, villages being plundered, and coastal towns terrorized. The Viking longship made these feats possible and cemented the Vikings' reputation as masters of the sea. The genius of the longship was not just in its technical design, but in how the Vikings used it strategically. While many kingdoms focused on land-based warfare, the Vikings leveraged their ships to extend their reach. The combination of light hulls, strong planking, and flexible construction allowed for astonishing feats, crossing the North Atlantic, exploring the Mediterranean, and reaching the Middle East. Each longship was a versatile platform for warriors, cargo, and even livestock, capable of adapting to countless conditions. In addition to battle, these ships also played a vital role in trade, communication, and exploration. Longships enabled the Vikings to reach distant communities and bring back exotic goods, news, and cultural influences. Their maritime skills, honed through generations, gave them an advantage that no other civilization of the time could match. Even the most powerful kingdoms could not replicate the design because it was not just about craftsmanship. It required intimate knowledge of materials, watercraft dynamics, and the combination of flexibility with durability. The longship's impact extended beyond military conquest. It reshaped economies, facilitated new trade routes, and influenced the cultural exchange between distant lands. Its speed and resilience allowed Scandinavians to establish settlements far from home, leaving a lasting legacy that shaped the history of Europe and beyond. By the 8th century, the Viking longship had evolved into a vessel that could carry warriors swiftly and safely across oceans and rivers alike. Its combination of speed, lightness, strength, and adaptability made it a revolution in maritime design. Coupled with the Vikings' discipline, tactical planning, and navigational skill, these ships ensured that the Vikings were not just raiders, but explorers, traders, and powerful forces shaping the medieval world. In battle, the longship allowed the Vikings to strike suddenly, land quickly, and retreat efficiently. Fleets of these ships could coordinate complex movements, confuse enemies, and execute strategies that relied on mobility rather than sheer numbers. This approach allowed smaller Viking forces to dominate larger kingdoms, spreading fear across the coasts of Europe. Historical records show that these raids were not random acts of violence. They were carefully planned and executed operations, enabled entirely by the capabilities of the longship. Ultimately, the longship exemplifies how innovation, adaptability, and strategic thinking can transform a small community into a dominant force. The Vikings' ability to combine traditional designs with borrowed techniques, enhance them with superior materials, and use them with tactical intelligence allowed them to leave a mark on history. They mastered the seas in a way no other people of the time could, and the design principles of their longships influenced shipbuilding for centuries to come. Even today, the legacy of the Viking longship is evident. Archaeological finds, reconstructed vessels, and historical studies continue to reveal how these ships embodied a balance of strength, speed, and efficiency. The lessons of the Longship remind us that ingenuity and understanding of the environment can elevate even a small group to extraordinary power. From humble dugout canoes to terrifying fleets that conquered rivers and coasts, the Viking Longship stands as one of humanity's greatest maritime achievements. The story of the Viking Longship is a reminder that great design, combined with knowledge and strategic thinking, can change the course of history. It was not only a tool of war, but a symbol of mastery over nature, a testament to human innovation, and a vehicle that carried the ambitions, courage, and ingenuity of an entire people across the seas.